meeting as well. If Mr. Lind, you can let people know that one.
Pull it up here. All right. So we're now going to begin a remote meeting through the use of video communication. It's important that we continue to respect the privacy and confidentiality of the members of our school community, including our teachers and staff and our students and families. By participating in this remote meeting today, you agree that you will not save, record, share, post in this session or any photos from this session. I will not be recording this session as well, and agree to not save, record, or share, post this session or any photos from this session. This meeting is being recorded by North Brookfield LPAC. If you do not agree with these rules, please disconnect from the session now.
Okay. So hopefully this won't be a super long meeting. First thing we need to start with is some old business. At our August meeting, we had a draft of a mask policy. We have reworked that. And we will need to vote on that, I think. Does anyone have any questions about it? We all received the information and reviewed it. Any questions? Nope. Okay. So because of the situation, we don't have to do 3 readings on certain policies, and this is one of them. So when we vote on this tonight, it will go into effect and until we suspend it, which hopefully will be sometime in the next year. So I need a motion to approve the mask policy. And actually, do we have the, on the agenda, you didn't have the, what are the letters for it? Rich?
It's EBCFA.
I'm sorry, did you say what?
E as in Eric, B as in boy, CFA.
So policy EBCFA, face mask policy.
I move to approve the EBCFA mask policy as we reviewed.
I can have a second.
I will second.
All in favor? Okay. Thank you. So we do have some new business. If I can just make a quick adjustment, why don't we start with the ESP contract? And go over that first. Because I may have fewer questions. People may have fewer questions or comments on that one. So this is the contract for our paraprofessionals, school secretaries, and food service staff. And this is a 1-year contract.
We met with the bargaining team a number of times, beginning last winter. However, negotiations were interrupted, obviously, with the onset of the virus, and we began meeting again in August. What we've put forward and the union approved today is a 2% 1-year increase, along with some other items that that we had already agreed on moving forward. For example, Article 10, the sick leave section, we increased the annual allowance by 1 day for the employees in this unit. We did also add language related to if any of this staff is hurt and sent to seek medical treatment for injuries, that they aren't required to use sick time during that, during the time they go seek medical attention. We did agree to a $250 stipend for toileting, which excludes preschool and kindergarten. Any students that require that service. We eliminated Article 20, which is the agency fee, which was effectively eliminated by the Supreme Court decision, the Janus decision, back in 2018. We also agreed that if a paraprofessional has any medically necessary equipment, such as glasses, that is damaged while working with kids, the district will pay for it. We agreed that we would establish a labor management subcommittee to look at job descriptions. And then there's a housekeeping item that in the last contract, we did not make an adjustment to carry over personal days, so that it says they can carry one over, and at the start of the year they get 3, which means they could technically have 4, but the language says it can't exceed 3. And the people who have been in on those negotiations prior to us being involved, since none of us were part of that previous thing, the thought is that that word, the word 3 just wasn't changed to 4, because prior to that contract, the last contract, that did not exist. And again, the last piece is just the salary. 2% represents what teachers and custodians got last year during the previous school year when we negotiated those contracts. I think both sides are pretty satisfied with a 1-year contract at this point, given some of the unknowns that are coming down the pike in FY22.
Does anyone have any questions or comments or anything? Okay, so I need a motion to accept the MOA for the ESP contract.
I move to accept the MOA for the ESP contract.
And a second?
I can second.
All in favor? Thank you. So the next piece is the MOA for the upcoming year for the teachers. This is the North Brookfield Teacher Association. This will be their contract. Obviously, there had to be some adjustments to their contract. Does anyone have any comments or questions? Rich, do you want to review that real quickly?
Sure. So we met with the union leadership a number of times over the past several weeks. We worked through a number of issues and concerns that both we and the Teachers Association had. We tried to organize it in a sort of way that made sense: the work day, work year, and assignment pieces, safety, cleaning protocols, absent leave, illness, and kind of general items to cover it. Again, it was a really good process to work with our association to come up with an agreement and a memorandum of agreement that I think covers the concerns that both sides have. In any negotiation, there's compromise, and I think the Teachers Association as well as the district found areas to compromise in so that students would benefit. Some of the major pieces, and there's going to be some sort of tough feedback on this, but I do want to share it with the community. When the reentry task force developed the original hybrid model, we were looking at a 2-1-2, 2 days on for Group A, 1 day remote, 2 days out. But one of the things that the Department of Elementary and Secondary Education encouraged was to look at some of our high needs students differently, and to try to provide them additional instructional time. So as a reentry task force, we talked about the idea of those students, including pre-K students, special education students in our Rise and Connect program, ELL students, attending every day. Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, Friday, full days, with Wednesdays being a half a day. One of the things that the Teachers Association really felt strongly about was that Wednesdays, we should not have any students in the building. I feel like the need for appropriate cleaning and separation, for the changeover from cohort A to cohort B was important. Frankly, we were a little concerned about compromising on that because we've obviously already shared that with families. However, we also were trying to work with our Teachers Association, and they wanted to work with us. So there were things that we obviously wanted as part of the agreement that I'm sure they weren't completely thrilled with. So part of this is compromise, and I think we did, and so we did agree that on Wednesdays no students will be in attendance. Now it's going to be a change for cohort C, students that were coming every day. They were only going to come 4 days a week. And that's going to be challenging for parents to find childcare. But to be able to open school on time with our faculty and staff on board is, I think, hugely important. So that was kind of one big piece. And we'll be communicating with families beginning tomorrow that of the change. And I'm sure, again, there's going to be some folks who are a little disappointed and probably upset. And we'll work through those and help them, get where we need to be, which is, we agreed to something with the larger sort of positives in mind to get everything back in and to get all school open with our faculty on board. There are certainly districts out there where that is not happening. And communities are at odds over it. And I appreciate our association working with us on that, telling us how they felt, honestly, and finding compromise. Another area just to kind of point out is a lot of staff have challenge with childcare, much like parents. On Wednesdays, when no children are here, if staff have an emergency situation, they may bring their children for the day with permission to work from school. We also can work with them to have them work from home, depending on the situation. But if it was an emergency and they needed to be here, that they could bring them in. And they would obviously, there's a waiver involved that the attorneys have been over and that kind of thing. But certainly that's part of it.
So can I interrupt here and just ask, Mr. Rigney is on. He is one of the represents the union leadership. Mr. Rigney, did you have any comments you want to make from your side?
Sorry about that.
No, that's okay.
Yeah, again, it was a lot of compromise, a lot of discussion. It's been a long 10 days to get this done, but again, I think both sides have given some ground, which is good, and I think the union is ultimately happy with what's happening, and I think the district is too, for the most part. And
you did have a meeting today with your membership, correct?
Correct. Yes, we ratified pretty overwhelmingly to accept the MOA. Which includes, I think one of the biggest ones was having staff work at school. I know a lot of districts there have been battling over having staff working at home versus working at school for remote. So that's one of the ones certainly we respect the district wanting that to happen. So.
All right. Thank you very much. And thank you to your membership. Does anyone have any questions or comments?
Rich, you just said that you would work with staff who had childcare issues and that it would also be possible for them to work from home. I just, and I've questioned this in the last week or so, if we're doing a deep clean in the school and that prevents students in the school district from coming into the school. I question why we would have children from outside the district coming into the school, fully realizing that childcare will be an issue. But I guess it would seem a lot more logical to me from a health point of view and from a cleaning point of view to have those teachers who were affected teach remotely from home. I don't know why we're bringing kids from outside the district into the building on a day that's there midweek for deep cleaning. And like why that wasn't somehow worked, because that, I mean, yeah, that's my question.
I think one of the big differences is just the pure numbers. We're not talking about bringing in, 100 kids into the building. We're talking about probably at most one or two at any one time, isolated in a classroom setting, while the teacher does whatever they need to do on site. But certainly we'll work with teachers and try to do this the right way so that we keep people as safe as possible. I agree with you. I mean, the less people in here, the better. That's really important, and we'll certainly move forward with that. But there may be times where the teacher does feel like they need to come in to do certain things. Meet with colleagues, connect with various resources, et cetera. So I think having that flexibility and being able to work with our teachers and staff to say, what makes sense and how can we do this the best way possible was the approach.
Would it be possible to make sure that those classrooms where the outside children are during the day are deep cleaned later in the day, like after that child leaves?
Yeah, they're going to have to be.
Okay.
And I mean, so was it discussed having those teachers who are affected work from home?
Well, I think the concern was when you get into equity that people are coming into the building and someone doesn't have to come in. So the idea was we'll make an accommodation and then we'll work with people. I think that's
right. But so my understanding is it sounds like this is going to be on a case by case, not all that frequent basis.
Yep.
So yeah, I guess if teachers are opposed to people being able to work from home, I guess that's why you did that.
So, Mr. Rigney, do you have any comments on this? Because this was actually from the union, I believe this was one of the requests you made. Is that right?
Sure, absolutely. I think the district was insistent that teachers work in the building.
That was my assumption. And
right.
Yeah, that's what I figured. And I think from a health point of view, it does not make sense to bring kids into the building from outside of the district. I would much prefer as a parent that those teachers with childcare issues be allowed to teach as professionals from their homes.
And beyond that, I think one of the issues the union had was because there are a number of a few teachers who are going to go to remote only teaching, that puts a larger burden on some of the teachers who are remaining there. So especially the special ed teachers who need to have that Wednesday to kind of deal with but to better manage their time with the kids. They need to be able to figure out how to work with all 4 days of the students and to deal with the remote stuff.
But those teachers aren't going to have students in the building with them on Wednesdays, correct?
They were going to, yes.
Right, but that was a concession that was made.
Correct.
Right. So no kids in the building.
No students in the building.
Right.
So do we see having teachers' children in the building as something that's going to happen on a regular basis on Wednesdays? So this was set up. The union requested that all students be remote on Wednesdays for equity, correct? For all the staff to have this Wednesday for planning purposes. Is that correct, Mr. Rigney? Planning and.
Correct.
Right. Okay. So.
I would be very happy to work from home on Wednesdays. That would
that was, I mean. Okay.
Right. So let me get back to what my understanding is that, is this an issue that if teachers are expecting to be in the building on Wednesdays, anyway, if they were going to teach or children or teach students or not teach students, they would have to have childcare because they're in the building, right? And so it's it's in the situation where you need, something happens to the childcare that you have set up on a regular basis, that you would bring your children in. So this is not in lieu of childcare. It is, oh, something's happened to my nanny or my, whatever, my husband has an appointment or my wife has an appointment. Is that my understanding of the way this is, you see this?
Again, I think it's based on need. Yes.
So based on need, not on a weekly basis that children will be in the building. And it's also something that if Rich, Mr. Lind, if it can be worked out, if the staff has a childcare issue, they might be able to, an emergency childcare issue, it might be a situation where they could work remotely on that day.
I want to be flexible with people, but I also think that having staff here is really important for the work that we need to do.
Right.
Yeah, just to be clear, the MOA establishes that the district has us come in on Wednesdays, and then if we need childcare, we can bring the students in on Wednesdays. So there's nothing in the MOA that says emergency, which hopefully will be great if people are flexible. That's great. But just to be clear about that, the MOA says staff needs to report if we're remote and if we come in on Wednesdays.
Right. In the event the staff member cannot find childcare. So people need to look and find childcare. And
having trouble understanding you, Rich.
Which one?
I guess my thought was always to accommodate teachers with childcare issues. It would be safer for all involved to have them stay in their own homes with their children rather than introduce new children into the building on a day that is designed to be a deep clean day. That was my question all along, but I know it's been written as such. I just kind of wondered why that wasn't worked into the MOA.
So it says, actually, I just looked at it. It says, sorry, let me find it again. On Wednesdays, the district agrees to allow all staff to bring their pre-K 12 school-age children into North Brookfield Public Schools with them in the event the staff member cannot find childcare. That's what it says.
Right.
So, okay. So, did you have a question, Jen? No question? Okay.
Why isn't anybody coming into the building on Wednesdays? If we're doing a deep cleaning, shouldn't it be empty?
so the custodial staff will be in the majority of the second shift folks later, allowing teachers use of the building early, during the day, the early part of the day.
Okay. Is it the overwhelming opinion of the staff that they want to work remotely on Wednesdays, or do they want to go into the building? Is that a question I can ask? I don't even know if it's a question I can ask. Just curious.
Well, where was Mr. Rigney was there? Are you still there?
I'm here.
Still
Yeah.
there.
Hello.
Yep.
Again, the union voted overwhelmingly to accept the MOA as written.
Okay.
So, I mean, do staff prefer to be in the building on Wednesday? And is that why that was written into the MOA that way? Because from a parental point of view, as it's written, doesn't quite make sense.
The district prefers us to be in building on Wednesdays, and if we go remote. That was their proposal.
Okay.
The proposal.
I also have a parental opinion, and that is that if that child has it, their parents probably do anyway, and so I don't really see what the difference is.
I see one of the differences being if it's a child that needs childcare that you can't leave alone. I mean, a 4-year-old in a space is very different than an adult in terms of hygiene. a 3-year-old, kindergartners, very different in terms of hygiene. And I'm assuming that if it was a teenager, they wouldn't need to be brought into the school.
So I guess I have to go back to the fact that the union was presented with this, and according to their leadership, they voted overwhelmingly for it. So understanding that from a teacher point of view, they accept the fact that the administration wants them in the building on Wednesdays when the students are remote. I mean, I have to say that I never really saw this as something that is going to be a weekly issue. If it becomes a weekly issue, maybe it's something we need to relook at. But is anyone, any other questions or comments?
I think that if I had a child that I would be bringing them into the school only as an emergency, because everything in that room has been touched by the other kids that were there the first 2 days of the week. So I have a feeling that it's probably going to be something that can be managed pretty well, but that's just my thoughts on it.
And again, Mr. Lind, I believe you said on a case-by-case basis, it might be a situation where someone did have an emergency childcare situation, they might be able to work remotely that day.
I feel like we're pretty easy to approach and ask.
Yeah, you gotta move a little bit. Can't hear you.
I feel like we're pretty easy to approach and ask things like that from a teacher's perspective. I've never felt like teachers weren't comfortable saying, Rich or Jean or Sarah or Mark, do you mind if, or I have this situation, can you accommodate? I feel like we've done that. I feel like the staff knows that. That's just my opinion. Do I believe, and do the other administrators believe that it's really important that teachers are present even during remote teaching? Yes. Here's why. It's not so much the time with the kids in the morning, it's the meeting times, it's those chances to connect with other colleagues for resources, for meetings, to be able to work together in a way that assists students to get where they need to be in a really difficult situation. I think was one of the huge pieces, besides a number of other things, that was missing last spring. The ability for teachers to get together, to figure out best practices together, to figure out how to help students, small groups, individuals, large groups. I think that is so underestimated for our staff to be able to do that, and that's why I believe in it and have advocated for it. And when the union approached about the idea of allowing staff to bring in children if they don't have childcare on that day, I'm okay with that. But if they say, I really don't feel comfortable bringing them in, is there any way I can work from home today? Yeah. Is that going to be a permanent, like you can just not come in again? No, it's not. It has to be on a case by case. People need to, I know it's hard, they need to look for and actively pursue childcare. And if they can't find it, then we'll make accommodations. But this is not free childcare. That's not the way it was written. And in fact, I think we use those words. So it's not just free childcare. It's if they can't find childcare, their childcare falls through for the day. Anything like that comes up. Our goal is to get people to work together because that is so valuable. All the research points to that informal professional learning that is so important. And to me, it's even more important in this environment where we're learning as we go. I mean, we're still trying to figure out how to do this sort of with students and families and ourselves, and having each other to see and talk to directly. I know you can do it digitally, but you have to plan that, and it's not going to be as productive as that more sort of ongoing professional relationship and professional learning that happens in person. Just my opinion. Certainly the Commissioner of Education has advocated for that. And I do happen to agree. Does that mean I can't trust teachers? No, that's not what that's not what I'm saying. And if
Okay,
someone
no, and I didn't mean to say you
needs
weren't
it,
trusting teachers. I just was reading the
but
MOA
I
as
think sometimes people look at it as, and you've certainly heard that in the media, that we don't want teachers working at home because we don't want to treat them like professionals. That's not true. But from my perspective, I can't speak from
Right.
others. I look at it as actually a chance for professional learning to actually happen at a higher level. That's the reason that myself and the other members of the administrative team were advocating for it, not because we had any other sort of negative feeling or belief about it. It was purely because we're all learning as we go, and better learning, better professional learning is going to happen when I can pop into someone's room and say, hey, listen, you do this, so can you help me with that? You have experience with this. You're really good at that. Can you show me? That's not going to happen if everybody's at home.
So Rich, why don't Elizabeth just had something that she wanted to interject. So
no, I just want to say the MOA as it's written does not say on a case-by-case level, but you guys agreed to it. If you're comfortable, I mean, as it's written now, it does not say case-by-case. It does talk about a waiver. But I think our discussion is indicating that it's maybe more narrow than it is written. And if everyone's fine with that, okay. But that's why I had questions.
So Ruth joined us a little late. Ruth, you got any comments or anything? We're discussing the MOA for the Teachers Association.
Nope, I'm comfortable with it.
All right. So
If I could just chime in for a second too.
Yep.
I just want to say, certainly, I think the teachers do feel administration is willing to work with them. And again, a lot of language in the MOA parallels DESE guidelines that came out, I think, at the end of August about remote learning and having teachers in the building, and the ability for those teachers in the building to be able to, if necessary, bring their children in for childcare. That's straight from DESE. It's nothing new or radical. And again, I think we understand the fact that the administration would like us to have that professional relationship where we can go around and talk to our colleagues and get together departments and talk about best practices for both hybrid and remote learning and live learning. So I think that's why this is sort of an effective MOA.
okay, so we need a motion to vote on the MOA for the North Brookfield Teachers Association. That's you, Tim.
I was finding my space bar. I move to vote on the MOA for the, how do we phrase it, Teachers Association?
North Brookfield Teachers.
North Brookfield Teachers Association.
And do we have a second?
I will second it. I'm waiting for Ruth.
Sorry.
Ruth has got the next one.
Okay, cool.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Ruth, did you say aye? I didn't.
I said aye, yes.
Okay, thank you. All right, so next topic is approval of athletics. I know there's many parents and students eager to hear the answer to this one.
So in your packets, let me just grab mine here. I put some information regarding athletics. It's interesting because the final vote, I believe, is tomorrow, but it does require school committee approval to actually run interscholastic athletics. That's straight from the commissioner's mouth, that school committees have to vote affirmatively to actually run athletics. Athletics can run if you do vote that based on the DPH color-coded map that everybody points to, which shows the 14-day positivity rate, I think it is. I forget the exact language to describe that. The only time athletics can't run is if the community is in red. That's an automatic shutdown. But I forwarded a bunch of guidance documents to you all, including the combination DESE, Massachusetts Interscholastic Athletic Association guidance. That was combined guidance. The guidance from the State Executive Office of Energy and Environmental Affairs. And then I sent you the soccer, field hockey, and cross country guidance, because after DESE and specifically the MIA came out with the sort of umbrella guidance, they broke into working groups for each sport to sort of define what that sport will look like during the pandemic if we were to run it. And essentially, it is left to each district to choose. And the way this is working, and we have Athletic Director Kevin Sloan on the line too, but essentially they're broken into regions, and we're in the central region. And those regions are working together to build sort of new conferences or leagues that are geographically near each other to limit travel. And I put a number of recommendations in the memo that I included. But at this time, we are recommending that we at least pursue athletics while we keep a close eye on what's going on with the virus and what we can do. We think that the protocols in place are pretty well developed, and there's still more work to do. But certainly, we're looking at trying to give kids another opportunity to participate in something that essentially has been put on hold since last March. And athletics, like any other extracurricular, music, theater, student groups, we're trying to find ways for them to happen again. Those are important things to students. So, Mr. Sloan, are you there? I knew you were there earlier.
Yep, he's there.
You want to jump in and talk a little bit about?
Sure. So as Rich said, the guidelines came down from first MIAA, well, the Governor's Council on Amateur Athletics, and then the MIAA did their little thing, and they had a COVID-19 task force, and they put together the sport specifics and breaking up the seasons into 4 seasons this year as opposed to the traditional 3, changing some of the start dates, end dates. And then the Central Mass Athletic Directors Association got together to create pods based on geography as opposed to our traditional leagues. So that's kind of where we're at right now. And as Rich said, the Central Mass Athletic Association is meeting tomorrow at 9, kind of go through some of the finer points of some of these rules and breakdowns and vote on the pods and get forward with some of the scheduling.
So I guess the only thing that I wanted to say was that I think it's important that the kids get a chance to play sports or have extracurriculars. I'm personally sad for band and choral students. But it is something that I think it's really important that parents and students understand that, the guidelines have to be followed. And I know that's something, if we want them to play. Is that something you feel like families and students understand that?
I do. I think once we get past this first step and we get into the round of pulling all the parents and students in and saying, listen, you really want this sport to happen for the next 2 months, this is what you have to do. Mom and dad, this is what you have to do. This is what has to be done. Just the same thing as entering into the school. Most of the parents want the kids back in school and they realize this is what has to be done. It's cohorts, it's masks, it's sanitizing, it's one parent at a game possibly. It's following all the guidelines that are put on us, because if we don't follow them, then the whole thing gets shut down and everybody loses out.
Okay, does anyone else have any comments or questions about this guidelines. And so just to be clear, this is for 3 sports, right? It's cross country, soccer, and field hockey.
Yeah, 3 sports, but we have boys and girls varsity soccer, so
Right.
we would be running 4 programs.
Yeah, right. Sorry. I mean, I meant that both boys and
That's
girls. Sorry.
And we might not even have gone this far since we haven't voted. Are the coaches all willing to coach with the guidelines and the restrictions and the new parameters?
That's the next step. Nobody has expressed that they want out. I think everybody's kind of waiting to see where we fall as if we offer it. I've been in contact with all the coaches. They're eager to get back into their sport. And then it's just, like I said, the next step, getting together with the coaches and saying, here are the guidelines, this is needs to be followed. And then bringing in the kids and the parents, this is what needs to be followed, and the next step and the next step. But as of now, everybody's itching, I believe, to get back into what we all say, new normal or some sense of normalcy.
I will say there was quite the basketball game going on up at the Common tonight, so the town's eager for athletic activity. But to be clear, what we would be voting on tonight is to open the discussion with the parents and the coaches and the athletes involved. Is that what we're authorizing to proceed with this discussion and
You're authorizing us to proceed with athletics. We can't go further without your approval. You certainly have another crack at it on September 21st, because the season essentially can't start until 2 weeks after, Kevin, correct me if I'm wrong, we get into school. So most districts are going back September 16th. So if they go back September 16th,
Right.
they can.
The MIA has
Some feedback there. I don't know if it was me. Anyway, they
the problem.
yeah, I don't know. But most schools go back September 16th, and they can't, if they have to wait 2 weeks, that brings us to early October. So as a committee, you can always come back on September 21st, once we have a little more information, and decide whether whether you want to approve us going forward with the season or not. But without your approval to move forward, it's a lot of time not to do that. I don't want to pursue it if it's not worth pursuing, but I do want to pursue it if the school committee would allow us to do that. So I don't know if that answers your question, Tim. Sort of gets us to the next step.
Can you hear me better now?
Yep.
So, right, the MIAA has put a start date as September 18th for which sports can begin. That was 2 weeks after the original start date of August 24th. Most of the teams in our little pod, our geography pod, are going to start October 5th. So we still have a little bit of time if we want to look at it that way, or we have time to kind of get sports under our belt. So we can look at it 2 different ways. Before we even engage with another town, it could be as late as October 19th.
Okay, any more comments or anything? Everyone understand? This basically is just to sort of start the process that we,
Yeah.
any other questions, comments? All right, so I guess a motion to approve following the MIA guidelines. Is that what we're looking for? Okay, so I just need a motion for that.
I move to approve initiating the athletic discussion in compliance with the MIAA guidelines.
Second,
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. So the next two things are not things that we have to vote on. I'm actually, again, just going to switch things a little bit and start with use of facilities. So these are just discussion on how to proceed. So the use of facilities, the school gets and the grounds get used for various community activities and events, and we charge not a very significant fee for most of them. Obviously, this is a very different situation, and I know that Mr. Lind has suggested that at this point that we probably don't want to open up the school building itself to outside groups, with the exception of, obviously things like town meetings. So we would not be allowing outside groups to use the buildings. But the grounds we might be able to be more flexible. Is that correct?
Yeah, I mean, we have several soccer leagues or programs that have rented our fields in the past, and I have not approved them to use them this year. The requests are in my inbox, and I wanted to get feedback from the committee on, how they feel like we should proceed with those use of facilities, because the Board of Health, I've met with them. The feedback on that was, you certainly can rent your facilities, encourage them to follow all the guidelines, but it's going to be incumbent on those organizations to follow the guidelines. There's no restriction to the school facility. So essentially, it's up to you as a committee, whether you think it's the right time or not. My recommendation is that we continue not to rent the inside part of the building. Groups that are going to use the gymnasium or the auditorium or whatever, unless they are associated with the town or the school department in some way, and we can evaluate each request based on what they need to do. And then, but the outside spaces, if a soccer club or a soccer league wanted to use our fields, I'm comfortable with that. With the idea that that we talk to the organizer, the person in charge of that group, and let them know that these are the rules. And frankly, I'm not going to police it. I'm not going to be driving here saying, "Are you wearing your mask?" But if I get reports that is, they're not following the rules, so to speak, that we would have to reconsider future use. That it's really important that they're responsible for their organization and the people associated with it, whether it's parents coming to watch their kids play soccer or some other community group using our fields. So that was my thinking. I value and need school committee advice and feedback and support on this. So certainly I'm open to whatever. We haven't approved any, so I think I don't want to watch the news and find out there was an issue because the local soccer club had a tournament and we had 500 people here. And
I mean, I think the soccer leagues themselves have rules and guidelines that would be in line with our policy itself. So I think everything you're saying, Mr. Lind, sounds reasonable. And my guess is, I know the youth soccer league, they're very clear about their requirements. And I think if we just, continue to maintain the clear guidelines at the school, and also throughout the year have them posted. And I know we're allowing town meetings and municipal board type meetings where those will be taking place in the school. But I think we need to be really clear that the school grounds policy requires masks, because that's not happening in all town boards. And I think as a school, we're in a position to set an example and also ask that be followed when, let's say, a town meeting is taking place.
Ultimately, Elizabeth, you're right. It is school property, and the school committee tonight approved a mask policy, so
Yep, yep.
it essentially, requires that kind of thing. And if people submit a use of facilities, you certainly have the right to say, we're open to approving it, but the people who are requesting it need to take some
Yeah,
responsibility.
right, yeah, and need to understand that this is the
Manage that.
policy. Yeah,
You
yeah.
can't as a committee, and I can't as a superintendent be here 100% of the time, although we'd
No.
like to be.
No, but I think it
you know
would be
what
reassuring to, I think it would be reassuring to people in the community to know that this is the school's mask policy. And for people who are using the building, that is the expectation. And obviously, we all know that enforcing that is not easy. But at least that can be the stated policy. I think that would go a long way for a lot of people.
Well, I also think we have to be very clear when you say town associated, what do you mean by that? I mean, I'm assuming town meeting is pretty much the only thing the town uses the building for. And although I would love to be able, a theater group to, use the building and put something on, I don't think that that's something that we should be approving at this time. So town associated is
Town meeting.
related to our governmental
government.
processes.
Town
And
government.
certainly we have a policy, and that, that's part of the use of building. But the grounds obviously is different, right?
Yep.
So
Can it be added to the school use form?
Yeah, my suggestion would be that I write up a sort of an addendum to the use of facilities packet that we put out, and just say, it's not anything I think that the school committee needs to approve, but it will attach the mask policy. I'll connect back with the Board of Health and get their sort of sign off on what we put forward as, to keep people safe and keep the school grounds as safe as possible. These are the expectations if you're approved for a use of facilities.
Yeah, and I think it makes sense to have Board of Health sign off, not so much that they need further approval, but just more to keep everyone in the loop.
Yeah, they're tied into other boards of health. What other communities doing?
Exactly.
How does that work?
Right.
So yeah, happy to work with them. They know a lot more about this than I do, and have a lot more access to DPH kinds of information that frankly, maybe I do have access, but don't know where to find it as quickly as they do.
And so moving forward, like it sounds like are we in agreement that the request that you've received for the use of the outdoor space of the campus, that we can move forward with your approving those?
Again, it's not a voting item. I'm looking for feedback. If anybody feels like we should not do that, I'm open to having a conversation, because I have two in my inbox and I've left them there until we've been able to meet on this. Because I just feel like this is really an important issue to make sure we're, as the school committee and the superintendent, on the same page. Because we are a community resource. Lots of people want to use the facility, whether it's a big group or an organization or a local little league kinds of groups or soccer. And we're also just a place where people like to come and walk or ride their bikes or play tennis or whatever with friends. And those are things that, again, I don't think we can monitor, because when I'm here, or staff is here, that's great. But when everybody goes home at whatever time at night, someone's here doing something they shouldn't do. There's no one monitoring that. I think the idea is to encourage people. That's what I've talked about with the Board of Health when they visited the other day, was continue to encourage people to do the right things. They're willing to get us signs that say that. They got signs for the basketball courts. So I think those are things that we can do. But I think in terms of the use of facilities, I am comfortable approving the outdoor ones and getting a sort of an addendum to their request that they would sign off on. Just sort of initialing that they understand there's a mask policy, they understand our approach. That if they're found to be violating the policy, they may lose access for their current use of facilities or lose it for the future if it's a kind of a one-time deal, you know.
So
I
I
don't
think,
think it's, oops.
oops, sorry, Tim, go ahead.
I don't think it's unreasonable to, if someone is applying for use of facilities, either for the outdoor facilities or maybe down the road, the indoor facilities, I don't think it's unreasonable to ask them for what their plan is to comply with our guidelines and with state guidelines, because let's face it, no one's going to rent the gym to go sit in there by themselves. They're going to have a group of people there with them, and we need to be assured that they are being responsible. And I think attaching a plan that they have based on whatever their individual needs are is a reasonable request to ask for future applications.
I think that's true, and but I think basically what we're right tonight is outdoor. Go, you know, with what we've discussed about, make sure they have a plan in place and to follow our guidelines for our campus. And with the building itself, we will not be approving use of it at this point.
Oh no, but even with the outdoor ones, we just
Oh yeah, absolutely,
plan
absolutely.
attached.
Yep.
Yeah,
No,
you're
yeah.
gonna do soccer and you're gonna have a lot of maybe too many parents, you know, and I know no one wants to hear about limiting, you know, you're going to watch the 8-year-old play soccer or the 10-year-old or the 5-year-old, whatever it is. But, you know, we can have a lot of people, it's outdoor, but they gotta spread out. Like that's gotta be the organization's responsibility to say to parents, for us to keep use of the fields, we need you to spread out. You
Right.
know, you can't
Right.
all sort of bunch together. And I think that's, you know, again, I'm assuming that's what Tim means. Do they have a plan to address that?
Right.
Things like that.
Yes.
So, great. I'll
But
go
it's
forward with this.
I think that we're all, there's no one feeling that we cannot allow outdoor use as long as people have a plan and understand the guidelines. Right.
We'll put it together.
All right, great. So this last one is protocols for changing learning models discussions. This is basically a nice way of saying, you know, the what exactly is it that will lead us to a decision that if we had to change to go from hybrid to fully remote. And so Desi did send out that guidelines at about a month ago. Yeah, actually just about a month ago. And no further guidelines from them. I do think it's something that it's important that we all have a kind of framework to follow for ourselves. I mean, we are different than other communities, you know, in other areas that have a larger population. So what is it? And this probably isn't something that we are going to decide tonight, but it's what exactly, how's this going to work?
So this is something that superintendents have been working together on, trying to come up with a more consistent way to look at when we should open up or close down. And obviously close down is the bigger concern, right? Like you have more cases, that's what we're afraid of. The open up part, if we have less and less and less until we have, you know, a really small amount, people are going to start clamoring to open up. But I think what we're really worried about is when do we close down? When does it get unsafe? Not when does it get too safe? So we're really concerned about when does it get too unsafe. And one of the big things superintendents have talked about is a concern about sort of having a one-size-fits-all approach to this, because as Maria said, so many communities are very different. We are very different from a Worcester or a Dudley Charlton or her, you know, they're a regional district and they're looking at 2 communities, and Worcester is urban. So the way we've kind of put this together is to have this be an assist, and that we'd look at the confirmed cases per 100,000 in the community, and these numbers are, you know, on the phases of learning, kind of page 2, are general numbers we put together, but we're encouraged to look at those based on the local context, and combine that with the state of Massachusetts positivity rate, which is again through that that color-coded chart that we all have seen of each community that DPH is putting out, and try to use that as a basis to start a decision-making process, and then that we would look at multiple weeks of data, that we would look at other local data that we find important, or feedback from the local Board of Health, and obviously local healthcare providers, to try to make a decision that's right for North Brookfield based on a very fluid, uncertain, evolving situation. So this is what we came up with, and I think it's incumbent on us as a community to look at those numbers in the chart and say, how many confirmed cases per 100,000 would be full? Would we start looking at full in person? How many cases per 100,000 should we remain in hybrid? And more importantly, how many cases per 100,000 should we strongly consider remote? I don't know the answers to that. I don't. And I think that's a discussion we should have. I think it's information we should ask our local Board of Health. It's certainly an important piece to sort of take into account as we do this. What this document has near the bottom of page 2 is kind of a number of bullets that sort of try to outline all this, that it could be a state issue, there could be a regional issue, or there could be a more local issue, or even a school-based issue, not necessarily a town issue, but actually something in the building. I don't live here in town. If I come to school sick, that's not a town issue, it's a school issue, but then it becomes a town issue by my interaction with others. So it's really important, as we've talked as superintendents, to try to find some guidance without it being one size fits all, and to put multiple people in the sort of the decision-making seat at times. So obviously the Board of Health at any point can step in. My job as a superintendent is safety, and I can close schools for up to 14 days based on whatever might be happening. But a longer-term closure ultimately lies with the school committee, as in local control, and that's how it's been. You've been lucky enough to been able to vote on all these sort of challenges that have been presented. Why not on this one, right? But the whole idea was, we want to be consulting with the Board of Health. We want to be consulting with DESE and DPH. We want to be consulting with other districts, what's happening in towns next to us. We want to be able to consult with each other, and that's what I put in the last part of this, was that on a weekly basis I'll send you this information for review, and any other local context information. And if there's anything you want to add, we can have an ongoing sort of communication about it to say, is this something we need to talk about right away, and go from there. I don't know of a better way to do it. I wish there was easy sort of, the chart. If we're here and here and we come together, this is what we do. We stay open, or we close, or we, close for 2 days. I'm not sure that works in this situation, because every situation is so unique. So this is what superintendents are putting forward and thinking about, as far as trying to find that medium between some solid numbers and some flexibility to make good local decisions based on the situation. Happy to get any feedback on it. I mean, I know it's an ongoing conversation. I really don't know where to go from here without some feedback. My plan would be to also bring this back to the reentry task force, to send it out to them, because we did have discussions about this. I know DPH is planning some more, and I know I said that last time, that it should be coming out It has not come out yet. The DPH has given us a little more guidance in looking at metrics and when we should close versus staying open or move to full in-person rather than hybrid. It's just not out yet. And my guess is they're struggling the way we have to find numbers that fit everybody. Because I don't think they're out there, that there's one size fits all numbers. So happy to take any feedback that you have.
Yeah, I have no feedback just because as of yet, it would be good to have a framework. That's my feedback.
Yeah, it would. I mean, I'm hopeful DPH will come out sooner rather than later. But until then, we can start with this. I know the Superintendent's Association is involved with DESE and DPH on these kinds of things. So I'm sure they'll be putting forward the things we've been talking about as superintendents to those groups. In fact, I know they already have, so.
Okay. So, this is probably something that we need to, in the most annoying business parlance that I can use, circle back to. But we have a meeting on the 21st. Do you think maybe by the 21st you will have, is it something you think you could be able to, you've talked about the superintendent's ordering something, putting this back out to the reentry plan, contacting the Board of Health.
Out to all those groups.
Right. So by the 21st, maybe you'll have some feedback from them and we'll start getting a clearer idea, and hopefully we won't have to make any decisions before then.
Yeah, it would be nice for the people with expertise to be able to provide us with
Right.
what
So
we should do. But
right. So, we have the meeting on the 21st. So that's kind of a little bit of a deadline to reach out to those people and get some data back.
sounds perfect.
So we have nothing else on the agenda. Does anyone have anything they want to say or share or?
No, it was nice to go to the school today and see cars in the parking lot and like people walking around and stuff. I just hope it all goes so swimmingly, and I'm excited and nervous and just excited to see it all play out. Not for a lack of planning, certainly will it be successful. So let's hope everyone does the right things.
Yeah, I know there's a lot of anxiety. I think we all have it, and but I'm super excited because it's been. And I know I've written this a couple of times and said it a couple of times. It is whatever it is, September 9th. We are 6 days short of 6 months. Actually, less than that. 3 days, 4 days short of 6 months since kids were here last, and I miss them. And I can't wait for them to be back in school. So we've sent out buses, we've sent out lots of information. I know there's lots more to come, technology, some of the remote information. I just appreciate people's patience because, we finalized cohorts about a week and a half ago, and we've really been working hard to try to slowly and surely and hopefully correctly get everything in place. And it might not be moving as quickly as everyone would like, including me, but I'd rather it move at a pace where it's done well than just done. So I'm excited to see kids tomorrow.
So I know that for the administrators that are with us, good luck tomorrow, and pass on the good wishes to your colleagues and also to our staff, all of the wonderful staff people who are there, and also to the kids heading back cohort A tomorrow. Good luck.
Can't wait to send you my kid. He's doing all the summer reading today.
There were an awful lot of parents picking up Chromebooks for the junior, senior high who seemed to say the same words, Mrs. Maggio, same words. Send
Waiting
them
for the
up
bus at 4 a.m. Just me with my champagne and him with his.
at 4 a.m. That sounds good.
Yeah. So good luck.
We're glad to have them.
All right, anything else, or shall Debbie call for adjournment?
Nope, I'm in. I move that we adjourn.
I second it.
All in favor? All right, good luck.
Very much, everyone. Good night.